He joins us now today to unpack why understanding AI is about much more than understanding the machines. Vukosi, how are you?
Good afternoon, Puleng. Good, thanks. How are you?
You know what? I am hanging on.
Excited for today's conversation. Yeah.
Tell us about what inspired you to write this book, AI Navigator.
Yeah, thanks. I think AI, there's obviously the huge hype around it. And I think for me, it was quite important as a practitioner who's been in this field for almost 2 decades to really just help people of the world really understand what actually this thing is. Because I think from that, we then understand how to better interact with it and how to better benefit from it. And I think you'll see the way in which I framed the book from the beginning. I first really create context around AI, not so much as a technology, but more as an information advantage issue, which did not begin with the technology itself. So I think I try to say, let's first park the technology and the hype and the smarts. This is more about the control over information and the use thereof. If you really look back into all of history, what you quickly find is that the control over information has repeatedly determined which nations dominate. Pulling. And if you actually go back to how writing enabled the first empires, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and China, and it meant that they could text, administer, and command armies across distances, right? And later we saw print, which shifted power basically actually to Europe. And it accelerated the Reformation and the scientific revolution itself and really gave birth to literacy and democratized information for the first time. And when you fast forward really beyond that, Pulling, is that in the industrial era, you saw again the information tracking capability really dominating, and that's what really underscored Britain's dominance, right? Through their undersea telegraphic cables in the 1800s. And you keep pushing that forward to what we're actually really seeing today is that that pattern continues with data, AI, and computing. We are seeing US and China compete over semiconductors, AI, internet platforms, precisely because whoever sets the standards and controls that infrastructure shapes the global commerce and politics. So it is quite a critical area to understand from a right perspective. And that consistent lesson across all the eras is that the raw materials matter less than the capacity to collect, process, and distribute information faster than your rivals. And across that societal balancing act between how you do that from an openness perspective to drive innovation and the strategic control, particularly of the key infrastructure behind that, those nations have tend to come ahead and become the superpowers. So AI actually is less an technology issue, but more actually an economic and political issue. So I think that for me motivated me to really go on this journey where I distill what actually really this AI is all about and the fact that it did not happen by accident. It is really a continuation of getting better at being able to process and deal with information to gain competitive advantage, either at an individual level, corporate level, but even at a country and global level. So that was really the biggest motivation, Bullet.
And you write about information asymmetry and how access to knowledge has actually shaped power throughout history. How does um, the AI information fit into this narrative that you clearly demonstrate and touch on in the book?
Yeah, thanks. So again, using sort of like the similar pattern, what you find is that all of human history itself began when people developed the ability to speak. When one ancestor looked in the eye of the other, another and uttered the first sentence, right?
Mm.
It meant people could cooperate to do and build things together. And then after that came writing, which means that now could even protect the fidelity of information, in that information could be transferred from one place and from one person to another intact without losing fidelity. And then obviously we started going into print and libraries. And eventually, more in the late 80s to 90s, we said, let's start digitizing really this information, putting it into digital devices, what we call 01 codes, the technicians. So that on its own allowed all the information that had been collected throughout all human history to be available for anyone who had access to internet to be able to search it, index it, analyze it, and make decisions on it. That was quite big, and then we obviously saw quite an acceleration in the number of digital devices that the world operates in beyond just computing. Our phones actually became computers themselves, right? And all these other digital devices that actually interact with each other. So amount of data that now we started generating as society exploded quite significantly, particularly in the last 10 years. So even if you take someone like me who's really a mathematician, Puleng, if you look at the amount of data that we generate every day, or even for any organization that you work with, I won't be able to really give you enough insights and tips on what to do fast enough, given that it's so much data and it's in different formats. Some of it is video, some of it is audio, some of it is text, some of it is numbers. And AI's power really sits in its ability to be able to process all different kinds of data types, or call them structures, and be able to make meaning and find patterns very quickly and very accurately, in some instances within milliseconds, to empower you to really make decisions that help you, be it at a business level, how to deal with customers, but even just at a personal level. So I think quite critically, AI has really accelerated the ability to process information and compress that time more exponentially than we've ever seen in all of history, and be able to do it so accurately in most instances. Yeah.
So, Vukosi, do you believe that AI will replace? I mean, I'm just asking for people that are still kind of maybe anxious about it. That, and truthfully, some jobs definitely will be replaced by AI. And they already have. But will it transform the way we work, and in what ways will this be? What does that look like?
Yeah. Thanks, Pauline. I think definitely AI will disrupt jobs as we know them today. And again, if you look at all of history, we've seen that in the speaking era, the orators were the main profession, right? And then even in the writing, you saw artisans and all of that. So we have always seen that as humanity progresses, the nature of jobs and work and even meaning evolve over time. What we are generally battling with right now, from my observation, Puleng, is that we're all trying to think about job preservation in the context of the existing job, but we are not trying to imagine what the future jobs that will make us coexist with this technology look like. And history has taught us that with each of the industrial revolution, first, second, third, and fourth, we've always ended up with more jobs than the previous era. So I think without fearing progress, it is best to really appreciate that it will be a painful disruption, in that we need to all reinvent ourselves to be fit for a future kind of jobs, and not necessarily the current ones that you and I may be doing today. What is also quite interesting, if you take also an economic lens to that question, Puleng, is that the world operates, or has always operated on a demand and supply mechanism. So if imagine a world where AI automated you and I and everyone out of their jobs, right? That world, even if AI did all these things, who will then consume or buy whatever AI is producing? No one, because none of us will have a job and will not afford to consume, right? So it will actually, in that scenario, start self-destructing. So the market and the world has its way of achieving what we call equilibrium, the demand and supply. There needs to equally be enough consumers of whatever AI, in collaboration with human beings, are producing, versus the people who are spending to consume those very same products and services. So the nature of economics also dictate that we will never necessarily see a world where AI automate everyone out of work, because work is quite part of what keeps the economy and the society moving forward.
You know, that's actually an interesting reply to that. Never thought about it that way, because I mean, I've asked this question so many times, but what you just answered is actually brand new from the conversations I've had in the past. And if readers could take away just one lesson, Vukosi, from AI Navigator, what would that be?
I think what it will be is that given the era that we find with in ourselves in this AI era, this is not a hype; it's a continuation of humanity progressing and civilization progressing, particularly rooted in the power and ability and control on processing information. So this is not going away. It's not a hype. I think that is the first and foremost thing. And as a result of that, I think you need to participate, not just as a consumer, but as an architect of how you can shape AI, both at an individual level, but as well from a corporate and even a public sector perspective, how we can use AI to actually really leapfrog our competitors. What is interesting, Puleng, is that Africa, particularly, has always lagged the Western nations and even Asia and so forth in all of the previous industrial revolutions. But what AI really does is that it's starting to equalize the level field in that the world right now, we all have access to information and actually, quite frankly, the quality thereof. So that actually puts us in a world where you are no longer really the smarter based on how much you know. We can all find information through these AI tools and through the internet. But it's more the understanding on how to best use the information to innovate, to create products, and to gain better insights and understanding about our customers that you want to serve at an enterprise level. So there's a big advantage and a huge window of opportunity for us to catch up to our Western counterparts and even Asia. But we need to understand that that will also be limited by the strategic control over the key infrastructure that power AI. So data sovereignty, cybersecurity, and the risks that come with that, and how skilled are we to be able to navigate the complexities of AI, to be able to use it responsibly and competitively to get ahead. So I think everyone needs to be seeking to find, to upskill themselves in these key enablers of AI, not so much AI itself. I think AI itself is readily available to all of us in a fairly balanced and equalized manner. But it's how we use it and how we take responsibility and ownership of what the AI gives you to be able to make decisions in your respective jobs and future jobs, like I said, that will set us apart. And you can't afford to be left behind. If you are on the wrong side of that information asymmetry fence that AI creates, you will pay the price, and the reward will be for the other people on the opposite end of that spectrum. So in my book, I demonstrate that, and I also talk about what the agility and resilience requirements will need to be for all of us to be able to deal with this disruption, but as well share different use cases from different sectors. I go into quite a bit of detail in the healthcare sector as I operate in that domain. That gives you some good insights on what are some of the areas that you can take advantage using AI to innovate and build and scale products and services very, very quickly compared to what you could do in the past. And I think that in its own distill what actually this means for us and the so what, because it's all about someone picking up this book and reading it and saying, what will change come tomorrow morning? It's Monday. What will I do differently? So the book practically guides you through that, but as well gives you a very good orientation of why we find ourselves where we are.
Thank you so much, Vukosi, for talking to us on First Class Africa. All the best and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you so much, Puleng. Have a good afternoon as well to you and the listeners.